You read the title correctly. Today is the 20-year anniversary of the iPod. So let's get started. On how the iPod came and the success it had and all that. So the year is 2001. So let's think about what music solutions we had before the iPod. So there was the radio, which meant that if you had a radio in the car or if you just had a radio sitting around in your house, you could listen to the radio. But of course, with that, you have to listen to a bajillion ads and whatnot. Or you could use CDs. But even though CD stands for compact disc, I mean, look at this portable CD player that I have. It's not exactly compact. So it's not like I can just fit this in my pocket. And it's not exactly like I can just go ahead and it's not like I can just go ahead and you would have to carry on around a big lots and lots of CDs if you wanted to change the music in your car or something. And that was not very compact. So why not just use an MP3 player, right? Well, the iPod was not the first MP3 player, I will admit that, but many of the MP3 players at the time did not have the best UIs and couldn't hold very much music. Now, one exception. Actually, my father once had an MP3 player from Sony that actually sounded really good, but that still was not like the iPod. So Apple unveiled the first generation iPod Classic, or the iPod. Now, this is not actually the first generation iPod Classic. This is actually a 6th generation iPod Classic. And there are many differences, such as the fact that it has a 30-pin charging port and a color display. The first iPod had a monochrome display, just like the iPod mini here, which I'll get into in a second. But Apple unveiled the iPod, which was at the time advertised to where it could hold 1,000 songs in your pocket, because it came in 5 or 10 gigabytes. And it also had a bit of a different scroll wheel kind of finish, but you could also do many other things on the iPod too. I have a playlist linked down below of videos of all sorts of videos on iPods go more in depth about these kinds of features. But you could play games. You can have a calendar. You could even create contacts list. You could create clocks, alarms. You could even create a screen lock. You could put notes on your iPod. You could use a stopwatch. You could do all that stuff. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that you can play games? I probably already mentioned it, but oh well. However, the videos and photos feature were not and then the first generation iPod only supported Mac OS, which is probably why you don't remember the first iPod. But then for the second generation iPod Classic, it introduced Windows support, and it was the same thing as the first generation iPod Classic, but now with Windows support. And Windows, even back then, was the most widely used operating system. And the iPod started to get a little more heat. In 2003, with the third generation and the second generation iPod released in 2002, with the iPod third generation, it introduced the scroll wheel with little buttons on the top. And the first few iPod Classics just had a white finish on it. I'll get more in depth to that in a second. But it still had many of the same features. But the third generation iPod Classic actually introduced the 30-pin port that we think of iPods today. As previously, you had to use a FireWire port to charge. You used a FireWire port to charge your iPod. Charge and sync with your iPods, but now you could use Firewire, and you could also use USB too, as USB was pretty new back then. But in 2004, Apple changed things even more with the iPod Mini. It had all the same features of the regular iPod, but with less storage, as it came in only 4 gigabytes. But it brought many new features, such as the click wheel, which we all know and love today. And it also brought color to the iPod as well. It brought silver, which is pretty typical. It also brought pink, yellow, green, and blue. In fact, I think I have one somewhere. A blue iPod Mini somewhere in here. As you can tell, I have one right here, and it actually has a little clip on the back because Apple sold many accessories such as a clip and a dock. First thing, and this one doesn't work, this one does. And then there was a second generation iPod Mini, which I think was released later in 2004, but it removed the yellow option and also removed the storage also add the storage capacity to the back as well, just like the other iPods, because it didn't tell the first generation, second generation, and to add a new storage option of 6 gigabytes. And yeah, well, that's all it did basically. It didn't add a whole lot of features, but it had and never mind, you can watch full picture better do on the iPod Mini later on in my playlist. I have more stuff to do. I have more stuff to cover. In 2004, Apple released the iPod Classic 4th generation. Now, the regular 4th generation iPod Classic was very similar to the 3rd generation iPod Classic, except it was the last iPod that you could use both FireWire and USB for syncing. But the 4th generation iPod Classic had many spin-offs, such as the Harry Potter iPod, the U2 iPod, which had all the band member signatures and such on there, and it also had a black finish with a red quick wheel, and this was also the first one to have the click wheel actually. And it also had the iPod Photo, which introduced color display and the ability to see photos. In 2005, Apple actually ditched the iPod Mini and replaced it with the iPod Nano. This is the first generation iPod Nano right here. And it basically introduced, the first generation one only came black and white and introduced the whole new chrome back like the iPod Classics. The iPod Nano didn't introduce that much fancy to it, but the iPod Nano started going viral. Then in 2005, obviously Apple released the iPod Video, which could go ahead and have video playback, which is pretty cool. And 2006 wasn't that interesting of a year. The iPod Nano second generation brought back colors again, and maybe more storage too. I can't remember though. And then we get to the iPod, and it had the iPod Classic 5.5, which is an update that I don't really know much about. Oh, that was also the first iPod Classic to come in colors too. It came in black and white. The 5th generation iPod Classic did. And then we get to and then Apple introduced in 2007 Apple introduced. Oh, also in 2005 Apple released the first iPod Shuffle right here, which was like the budget iPod, the mini iPod and such. And then in 2007, Apple unveiled the first iPod Touch. This one does sort of work, but has a faulty backlight. But the first generation iPod Touch brought forth a touchscreen and internet and Bluetooth. And then afterwards, though, since 2007, Apple also unveiled the iPhone. Apple just went ahead and just got the other iPods stopped selling so well. 2008 was the most successful year for the iPods, but in 2011, you could definitely tell the iPod was falling because iPhones, that was the first year iPhone sales beat iPod sales. And yeah, and then after that, the iPod just sort of started falling apart because of the phone. And nowadays, even though Apple still sells the iPod Touch, they don't sell any other iPods anymore. It would be really pointless to give it to a kid or something because you can just give them your old phone, not put a SIM card in, and they can't call and such. So, yeah. Hope you all enjoyed this video, everybody, and as always, peace out.